Phase 2 of Season of Discovery is finally here, and I can't wait to experience the new endgame, including the new Normergon raid, new PvP event, even dungeon updates with better rewards and even skill tomes that drop, and of course a bunch of new runes and even new specializations to try out for each class. And to help us get there quickly and efficiently, here are a handful of tips that I've thrown together, largely based on my experience in Phase 1 and with a lot of the things that I wish I'd known in Phase 1 and taking that experience into the start of Phase 2. So first up, let's talk about some of the leveling changes, namely improvements to leveling speed, especially when it comes to levels 1 to 25. So first of all, there's actually going to be a Discoverer's Delight or Discoverer's Delight buff, which increases experience gains by a whopping 50% from levels 1 to 25. In case you're still in that level range, or if you're starting up a new character, like sort of I am. And besides that, you'll also be able to turn in the waylaid supplies, which are these crates that drop randomly that require you to collect and then combine a series of or a random number of a specific profession item that you can usually just acquire from the auction house or gather or make yourself into a crate to then turn into one of these supply officers in your capital city. And again, before level 25, these will start actually granting significant experience. And by the way, these were previously used for rune acquisition to gain reputation with this faction, and every class has to do this to earn some specific runes as well, so even if you're level 25, do continue doing these if you find them. Next, while some raids do typically become obsolete with each new phase, so to speak, of a WoW patch, Black Fathom Deeds, which was the primary raid of Phase 1, will not entirely be irrelevant because it'll actually grant you a significant chunk of EXP upon doing this raid while leveling up even past level 25. So you might still want to get a group for it and do this raid to be able to level up more efficiently. Next, with Phase 2, not only will each class receive new runes allowing for new specs and of course potentially more efficient leveling combinations of runes, but we'll also receive 2 completely new rune slots to equip 2 more runes with, namely the waist and feet slots. Although not all of them will be too useful for progression and leveling, and I'm not really sure how early you'll be able to acquire these additional runes for these new slots while still leveling up before level 40. But regardless, it's definitely something to look into as soon as people discover the acquisition location and method for these new runes and unlocking these new slots. Furthermore, on the flip side, and I sort of learned this the hard way in Season 1, especially with the lack of a mount, making things a lot less convenient to have to travel around Azeroth to collect runes. And the tip here is that if a rune that isn't too useful for leveling up or sort of a niche rune or just one that you're not really going to want to prioritize, you can definitely hold off on acquiring such a rune, at least until you get your mount at level 40, right? Because after you get the mount, and for example, if you unlock more flight paths after you level up to 40, getting these runes will likely be a lot more efficient, especially again, if you're not going to be having that much of a use for them while leveling up anyway. Similarly though, especially if some of these new runes are going to be very useful for leveling up and the build you want to go with, then perhaps it might be worth it to incorporate acquiring the rune into part of your leveling route, right? For example, if you need to go into a specific dungeon or travel to a specific zone, you definitely want to not necessarily take a detour to do it, but sort of weave it into your leveling route and sort of just plan around that acquisition. And next, of course, and especially with new skills being unlocked as you level up towards 40, some of which are crucial skills, and also the talent tree unlocking somewhat impactful talent points for certain specs, you might actually want to switch to a different type of talent configuration for leveling up in Phase 2 compared to Phase 1, especially since respecking is a lot cheaper in Season of Discovery. And speaking of both runes and skills, there are actually going to be completely new skills, mostly quality of life ones, that will drop in certain dungeons in the form of skill tomes. So these are actually not runes and can actually be learned permanently by your character. And of course, do not take up an additional or any rune slot. So you might actually want to also plan around acquiring these if again, they're going to be significant to your efficiency or just usefulness in general, right? For example, for the rogues, I imagine that redirect is going to be quite a game changer and quality of life, or welcome quality of life, even for leveling and just for a lot of purposes in general. And another very significant change to dungeons in Phase 2 is that a lot of these spellcaster items were actually buffed. So previously they only had intelligence and stamina and perhaps some random stat like spirit, but this time around a lot of these items are actually gaining spell power as well. So if you're playing a spec that would benefit from having some sort of spell power, you definitely want to keep an eye out for the dungeons and the bosses, of course, that drop these items. I'll actually link a Wowhead link below for you to check out some of the items that are receiving this change. And not only could planning around these dungeons benefit your leveling by having more power during leveling, but some of this gear may well be really good pre-raid gear as well. And next, taking a quick break from leveling and experience for now, let's talk about professions. So in Season of Discovery, professions have undoubtedly taken on a much larger role compared to Classic or Vanilla, with new items, especially things like bind on pickup, epic gear for the armor crafting professions, and in Phase 2, alchemy and enchanting also getting bind on pickup consumables that look very interesting, among some other changes. You definitely want to think about catching up with the levels of your professions, with the profession level cap, or skill cap rather, being raised to 225, right? And my current prediction is that materials are likely going to be somewhat a little bit cheaper at the very beginning while more people are gathering stuff. Will start increasing in value as more people get into raiding, which will be very early actually. But later on, I think prices will start going down, especially since after getting to level 40, you'll again be able to do lots of quests to earn gold very quickly. So that actually leads into my next tip, which is that if you can't really get materials for cheap to level up your professions with, or just to earn gold in general while you're leveling up, don't worry too much about it, because gold will come very easily once you hit the level cap at level 40, which again, like in Phase 1 at level 25, you'll be able to just complete a bunch of quests to be able to earn gold quickly, to be able to not only level up your profession, but also get your writing skill and so forth. And with that, coming back again to leveling, you definitely want to plan out your leveling routes, but not only that, there are some useful resources that you can utilize, such as the Rested EXP add-on, although it sort of cuts off at around level 20. And there's also plenty of guides online that you can follow for any sort of leveling path depending on your race and faction. And besides that, you can even incorporate things like, again, spec-specific rune acquisition and skill tome acquisition into these leveling routes and sort of alter them to your liking as sort of a more advanced strategy. And not only that, but you can also check out some of the best quests and quest lines, especially culminating zone quest lines that will often reward things like blue items or just things that might be useful for your spec in general, right? So you definitely want to check for these types of quests. Again, I'll link a Wowhead guide below for that. And so of course, you don't just want to level up as quickly as you can, but also want to grab good rewards, which should then in turn help you level quicker and more efficiently, of course. And to just throw in a couple of bonus leveling tips as well. First, in Phase 2, there is a new sleeping bag item that presumably will give you some kind of rested EXP on the go if you say log out, not in an inn, or perhaps based on the item's tooltip, it might actually give you some kind of bonus EXP buff of some sort. So I guess we'll find out, but definitely keep an eye out for how you can acquire this item so you can level up more quickly or perhaps an alt more quickly. And secondly, there's a pretty well-known quest chain called the Green Hills of Stranglethorn, which has you gathering these pages of these books, and there's actually multiple turn-ins that you can do by combining some of these pages for turn-ins, and especially if you have some gold to spare, you can actually buy the pages that you need from the auction house instead of having to farm them all, right? And of course, these pages will drop randomly from mobs in Stranglethorn Vale, but if you have some gold to spare, you can definitely just buy up a bunch of these pages, do the multiple turn-ins for a pretty big edge in terms of your leveling progression and without much time or effort spent. And those are a few leveling and progression tips which will hopefully help you get a bit of a head start in Phase 2 of the Season of Discovery, or just make things a little bit more efficient or less tedious in general. If you found this video helpful, be sure to give it a like, And if you have anything else to add, also comment down below and I'll be sure to read and reply to your comment. And with that, thank you so much for watching, happy hunting, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.